What's up everyone, this is John with Skate Better, and today we are doing the Wknd deck review. So I'm just gonna start off by saying that this is one of my favorite decks that I've ever skated. I'll get into those reasons why a little bit later. But the first question is always, why did I pick up this deck? To be honest, I wasn't sure what kind of deck I wanted to try. I was in a random skate shop and I saw this one. It was an 838, or really I think it's technically an 8.375 by 32 length by 14 and a half wheelbase. I was like, hey, it's my size. It looked really, really cool. Like, I liked the shape. I liked how it was pretty flat here, but it still seemed to have a little bit of concave. Now, the nose and tail had a decent amount of pitch, and I thought it was gonna work, and it ended up working a lot better than I thought it was. So, very happy about that. Also, the graphic looks super cool. I'm a really big Minesweeper fan. It had kind of like this graphic on it, and with a little bit of the Minesweeper in the background. I'll talk about that later, but it was just super cool graphic that I liked. And then it was also Tom Carangelo, I think is how you say it, but his pro deck. And he's one of my favorite skaters. I just really enjoy all the footage he puts out. I think it's sick. So yeah, I was like, all those three things combined, I've been curious about Wknd. I was like, let's give it a shot. So let's get into the next thing, the shape of this deck. First thing we're gonna talk about is the concave and the pitch. This is a real deck, very similar. When I'm looking at them this way, it might be kind of difficult to tell the concave from where you're at, but it does have, I'd say, a medium amount of concave. Maybe like if concave scale 1 to 10, I'd say it's like a good 6.5 concave. If you like mellow concave or super mellow decks, I don't think this would be your favorite deck. So compared to the Toy Machine, I'd say very similar amount of concave, maybe the tiniest bit more compared to, we have the Plan B here, which was a little bit flatter. And I would definitely say that it's has a little bit more concave than that deck. And once again, that might be kind of hard to see here because the concave is really like the swivel this way. And then let's talk about the pitch. So the nose and the tail of this deck. So what was interesting is I find that with a lot of decks, the tail is definitely a little bit less pitch than the nose, but in this deck, it was really similar. And I don't want to say it's symmetrical, but it's really similar, and like, I love that. I found out that I liked when the nose and tail have a similar pitch. That really works for me. So once again, if you're comparing the pitch, I would say that it has definitely more pitch than the Plan B. So once again, our old friend Mr. Toy Machine on here, I would say pretty darn similar in the nose, but once again, a little bit more pitch in the tail. You can see that it definitely has a little bit more of an angle to it. Let's take a look at the real deck here. We'll stack these up. Look at that. Definitely more pitch in the tail, and then once again the nose, I would say it's slightly more in the nose also. So I'm gonna look for decks that have less of a dip here, still have a medium concave, and then a decent amount of pitch in the nose and the tail, because I feel like that's what works for me. And I'm just choosing decks that I think are popular, that are out there. If y'all want to see more comparisons with certain decks in the future, let me know and I'll use the same decks. But I like to like mix it up a little bit. I feel like it keeps it fresh. All right, so next thing, let's talk about the nose and the tail shape of this deck. So I actually love the nose and tail shape of this deck. It was like the perfect amount for me. Not too round, not too popsicle, but not too narrow and tapered. And I'd say the primitive would maybe be like the perfect, because that to me was a perfect popsicle, and I think I maybe prefer that a little bit more, but it's tough. I don't know. I'd have to probably try the other one again, the primitive, and see which one I like more, because I really enjoyed this nose and tail. So let's look at compared to the Toy Machine. So these are all 838s. So definitely I'd say the tiniest bit rounder in the nose. I would say that this had a very average tail shape. However, it was definitely a little bit more rounded than like some of the other tails I've skated that maybe have slightly more taper. So I like a rounder tail also. So here we can see this is the Plan B deck. Just for a little bit of comparison, very similar to the Plan B, but even a little bit more rounded, a little bit more full than that. I don't know if you can see that. What I'm trying to tell you is it has a little bit of a rounder nose and rounder tail than I think the average shape does, but I love that and it worked for me. Not as extreme as like a hockey or an FA or some of those that are just super blunt. But definitely a little bit more than average and more popsicle-y than less popsicle-y. So next thing I want to talk about are the graphics of this deck. When I got this deck, it had right here, it had like a silver, I want to call it like, we'll just call it a silver graphic, like a silver picture of like a little Space Invaders like arcade dude or whatever, like right here. And I thought that was just part of the graphic. What I didn't realize is I started board sliding this the first day I got it, and that scratched away. and there was a really cool like Minesweeper thing pattern underneath it that had the Wknd logo. So it had the Wknd logo is like a square. I thought that was like the coolest thing ever. I don't know whose idea that was, but like that's genius. It's kind of like a scratch away graphic. Other than that, the graphics of this deck are not lasting. A lot of other decks I skate, I feel like have a really nice paint job, or maybe there's something else extra going on, and sometimes the graphics last forever. This one immediately started going away as soon as I did any sort of board slide. So I think if you like your graphics to stay in shape, that's not going to be the case with this deck, but it had so many other pros that for me, I didn't even really care. Okay, next thing, let's talk about the durability and the pop, which is I feel like what most people want to know when they're buying a deck. What is the durability like? What is the pop like? Right off the bat, I'm just going to say that this is one of the lightest decks that I've ever skated. Even picking up those other decks that have been shipped away probably a little bit more, this still feels lighter than almost every other 838 that I've ever skated. Maybe the Toy Machine, close second, but one of the lightest decks I've skated, period. Durability wise, this deck is lasting a lot. I have barely a little bit of razor tail coming in. I've been skating this deck for 2 months, maybe a little bit longer. The nose is in perfect condition, so no chips, and this thing has dinged into a couple walls here and there. I'm not saying that this deck won't chip for you if you get it, but I'm just saying for me, it does seem to be really durable, especially considering how light it is. I don't know what factory Wknd decks come out of, I don't know what kind of wood they're made with, but this stuff, it's working for me right now. The second thing I want to say about the pop is it had incredible pop. So once again, I know that I ride Thunder trucks, I ride the 149s, I know that those trucks are supposed to be a little bit wider than like, let's say an Indy or something like that, but I think because the pitch is a little bit more, it just worked. Something about the mechanics of this deck worked for me, and right away it was like snappy, felt amazing. The flips felt really good because it had a medium amount of concave, so all my flip tricks felt really good. And yeah, if I had to give it scale of 1 to 10, I would give the pop an 8. The reason I'm not saying a 9 is because I do feel like pop also has to do with your truck width and the wheelbase and those other things. So I'm just trying to go with pop off the deck in general and just how snappy and how poppy it was, and also how long the pop lasted. In this deck, the pop is lasting a long time. And if I'm being honest, I know I've said this in the past, I am skating a little bit less, 2 to 3 days a week, as opposed to before I was doing 4 days a week, or 3 to 4, it's like 2 to 3 now. So I just want to be realistic and like throw that out there. But still, I'll back this. I will say it's one of the most durable decks that I've skated. Considering how light it feels, I definitely thought I was going to snap this thing a couple times when I landed on the nose and the tail, or like I would land in a certain spot, and it just didn't. It held its shape, and it still feels great, and I definitely think I could still skate it. Great durability, great pop. Durability, I'd also give it an 8 out of 10, maybe an 8.5, and then pop, I'm going solid 8. General pros and cons of this deck. Well, I don't know if there's much else to say. I would say it has kind of like a cool pink stain going around the side, which is pretty neat. It definitely doesn't have a ton of flat before the nose, which I think I'm finding I like that. I thought I was gonna like more flat, but it turns out I like less flat. Would I buy this deck again? Absolutely. I feel like that's obvious at this point. I mean, I had so much fun skating this deck. It just felt right. It felt right for my feet. It felt right when I was setting up for tricks, and it felt very natural. Like something about it worked for me with the truck. So maybe if you ride Thunders, you scoop up a Wknd deck and hopefully it works for you. Man, was it one of my favorite decks that I've ever skated. Definitely like top 2. So I'd say it's between this and the Primitive. So yeah, if you've never tried Wknd, maybe you give them a shot. Maybe you have tried Wknd and snapped in the first day. I don't know. I'm just speaking for myself. I did love this deck, and I hope that y'all enjoy it too if you pick one up. That's pretty much it. I'm gonna leave my thoughts there. I did include a few more clips at the end just so you could once again see what the deck looks like and all that jazz. If you do have any questions, please drop those below in the comments and I will get back to you. And just thank you all so much for supporting the channel and the page as usual. Please like, subscribe, and comment if you did enjoy this video, and I will see you all next time.